Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I wanted to talk about why I think Destiny 2 The Final Shape absolutely needs sunsetting. And before you get mad at me, let me explain my reasoning. I know this is going to be something of a hot take. A lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I feel like there's a reason that every MMO, ARPG, and those types of games have some sort of either sunsetting, level caps, different rarity of items, some way to separate your items so that way once you progress to a certain point, your previous weapons are no longer really viable and you have to move on. And this is done for a couple reasons, right? One, it's so when you have a ton of different options, your upgrades actually feel like they are making your account better, right? One of the biggest problems that we have in Destiny 2 is that some of the upgrades are so marginal that they don't really help your account feel that much stronger, so there's really no reason to farm for hours and hours. Early on in Destiny 2, when we had nothing in our accounts, you would get a brand new weapon with a god roll. Obviously, this was after they introduced random rolls in Forsaken, but you would get that god roll, and all of a sudden you'd be like, okay, this has changed my account. I really want to chase it. All your friends would see that. They'd be like, I need that weapon too. So that way they were going to change their account. But right now, the upgrades that you get, because you have so much in your vault, because you have so many options, you have all these craftable options, it just doesn't feel like any of the newer weapons outside of, like I said, Strand or something like that, that is new and fresh, is going to be any sort of upgrade. Another SMG that we have, unless it's going to beat the Immortal, unless it's going to beat something that's already really, really good, even with new perks, it's got to feel significantly better in order to want to chase for hours and hours and really farm for those types of things. And that's one of the major problems, is it's just not worth it. That's why people won't spend time in the core playlists or farming seasonal activities as much as they have in the past, because when you look at all the weapon types and you're like, oh, well, none of these weapons are absolutely going to make my account significantly better and help me going forward. And then you look at the fact that if they do that, right, every time they buff up the weapons, they come out with some broken new ability perks on the weapons, like we've seen with this 3.0 subclass verbs. We've seen it with the additional origin traits. When they do that, the power creep becomes kind of crazy, and that's another issue that cannot be solved unless you have some sort of cap to these weapons, unless you have some sort of sunsetting in some way, right? Another option, instead of a flat out sunsetting, including an additional rarity of item, like instead of a legendary, have it be a shiny legendary. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But that new legendary is now going to be just flat out better. But then you make the game in general a bit harder, and that would allow you to kind of push people to chase these new weapons, because the base game is a bit harder, and now you want to have those in your hands in order to compensate for the game being harder in general. I don't know what the exact solution is. I think some sort of power cap would be fine. I think some sort of sunsetting of the weapons would be fine, but I do think there is a necessary reason for us to move on from a lot of the weapons we've been using for years and years and years, and it's only going to get worse the more years we have the same weapons being in the loot pool and being viable, right? We've seen some of these weapons that we have in the game that have been good, or at the very least solid, for so long that it's just time to move on. If you've used a weapon for a year or more, then it's time for us to kind of move forward without those weapons. I do not believe that the way Bungie handled sunsetting in the past was the way to do it. I think there's a more elegant way, and I do think there's a more creative way as well that's not going to feel like people are just kind of lost without the weapons that they've kind of farmed for years. But I just don't think it's sustainable to continue adding weapons that feel like they are incremental, maybe possibly upgrades, but not really that much better than what we already have in our vault. And especially when you look at more casual players, a lot of them are just not going to stick around in these various playlists chasing weapons that don't really mean much to how well the game feels to them. It doesn't make them feel more powerful. It doesn't make them feel like they're getting better loot or anything like that. And it's an interesting situation that Bungie finds themselves in, because I do think there's a sentiment that is very vocally unhappy with Bungie about something like sunsetting because of how it was handled in the past. But you look at things like Final Fantasy XIV or WoW or even Diablo 4, all of these games have some way to make sure that when you're progressing through the game, you have to get new, better gear in order to make your account better. And I think that's something that the Final Shape absolutely needs. It's a perfect opportunity for the game to feel like it's some sort of reset. And even if Bungie has to take some time off of making new content in order to put enough guns into the game to make this viable, I think it's absolutely necessary. And I hope it's something that we see going forward in some way, shape, or form. A lot of people are going to, like I said, not agree with my take on this, but overall, I do think it is a necessary evil in order for the game to feel fresh. I would personally, as much as people would disagree with me, I would be fine with something like a full wipe like the Destiny 3, where we kind of have brand new fresh characters in a new game, but that would be many years off, so I'm not really worried about that in the next year or so. I just think it's time for them to stop piecemealing the game together and having so many different guns in the game, because the bloat is just absolutely insane. Between the world drops, between the seasonal drops, between the dungeons and the raids, we have so many different guns in the game, and I just feel like a lot of them are not worth the chase, and that's just a personal opinion. Again, I'm a man who likes variety, so I may have a different feeling from a lot of people on this. I don't want to use the same guns all the time. I don't want to see the same meta all the time. I don't want us to feel like we don't have a reason to chase the new exciting stuff because we have something that's almost as good in our vaults. I'm still probably going to chase a lot of it just because when I have the time, I do enjoy playing the game still, but I just think it's a problem that could be resolved. And I hope Bungie does get creative with the solution and it kind of makes as many people happy with it as possible, because it's something that I would love to see. And I do think we need something of a soft reset once the Final Shape does hit. I'd love to know your thoughts. Again, if you're completely disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. That's fine. I don't think everyone should agree with me, but I don't know of an argument as to why it wouldn't help, especially when pretty much every other MMO or ARPG or game in this genre, looter, has something like sunsetting in the game for a reason. My name is JoPa. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more Destiny 2 content from me going forward. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.